Welcome back to Boundless Authenticity. Today, I'm joined by a friend, Heidi, who happens to be the host of Unfiltered Rise Podcast, as well as a cult survivor and a truth speaker. Howdy, Heidi.
Hi, I'm so happy to be back and chat with you. You are my friend. I'm so glad to have met you and back to talk about some weird stuff, man. This is my weird little story about my kid. We were talking about kids, and so this will fit right in. But yeah. So I have a presentation when we're ready. Yeah. Yeah, me too today. Me too.
Go ahead and get started.
All right. So I'll go into, let me share. And then anything you want to stop me at, like just, to interrupt me. I don't like wait until the end because I'll forget what I was saying. There we go. And I'm going to minimize after that's done. 1 second. All right. So this slideshow here, can you see my slides coming up? There we are. Can you see that okay? Oop. I can't hear you. I hope you can hear me. There. Can you see that okay?
The Great Seal of the State. Yeah.
California. Okay, so I put this in here because, funny enough, the Great Seal of California is Minerva, and this goes right along with my story about my daughter. And a lot of people ask me, like, "Well, why does that have anything to do with your daughter?" And I'm like, "Well, let me tell you a little story about this." So, and I think they might be slightly out of order, but that's okay. We went to Italy and we went to Rome, and me and my daughter had just suffered a horrible sexual assault, and she was healing. I cut her out of this photo. She's in it. You can kind of see her to the side there with the scarf. I don't like to blast her face or anything because that's wrong, but I am there. You can see we're there. And this tour guide pops out of nowhere and he comes up to us. We're just standing on the side of this road waiting for my husband to bring back sandwiches. And this nice looking man comes up and I'm like, "You got to go away because my husband is coming. He's not going to like that." So he's like, no, I'm a tour guide. I'm like, "Sure. Right." And he's like, no, I promise. So he starts showing me his Instagram. My daughter is very beautiful. So I was like, he's probably trying to talk to my daughter. And he's like, no, I just barely had the Kardashians on. And I'm like, then why are you talking to us? Like, we're just normal people, like we're getting a sandwich. What do you want? So he says, "Well, you can join my group, my tour guide group, right? And let me know you're there occasionally because I can't see you at all." So you there with me?
I'm here.
Okay, cool. And so when people come up to you like this, you have to remember I'm a normie at this point. She's healing from a horrible sexual assault at this point. And it wasn't somebody she knew. It wasn't like, and not that makes it any better for the people that ever get assaulted.
Okay, just to give a little bit extra context there. So you were a normie at this point. How long ago was this? And how old was your daughter when she was getting over?
Was her. So she would have been 20. I think this is when she's like 23. This has to be 2019. So when we were traveling, 2019, 2018, right in there. And I was total normie. Like, so when this man approached me, I didn't think of like things I would think of now. Like, what is he doing? Like, why is this happening? Because there's no coincidences in life, right? And this guy takes us on this cool tour. This is his like, this is his profile thing. This is like, he's really a guide. This is him and Kourtney Kardashian. So he's not full of crap. And this is the stuff he's showing us, right? So you can see why I was like, you got to go. Like, my husband's not too jealous, but he wouldn't like this situation. And so he also has been on like, he's like a been on The Gladiator. He's been on like a couple shows, like actual shows, like he's like a movie star or something. So we go on this tour, and it's like an off the beaten path tour. And she's already met her guy at this point that comes into, the whole thing, but they're just talking. And they met because he walked up to her at a crowded airport and said, "God told me to talk to you or I'd regret it the rest of my life." Okay. So again, another weird, right? Like that's nowadays she asked my opinion on this. And nowadays I would give a totally different answer than what I gave at that time. Because now we know like people are assignments. Things happen. And I know that now, but I didn't know this then. I was a Christian, but I wasn't very awake, right? Like I wished I had been. So this is us taking this picture, and I am literally standing on this building. See, I'm on the other side. I'm on those stairs right there. So this is the opposite side of it. And you can see what this is called. This is called Santa Maria Sopra Minerva. And that is because this church is built over the top of Minerva's temple ruins. And if you know anything about the story of Minerva and Medusa and all the weird things, this is just a little background on it. It shows that it's in Rome. That's where we were. The other elephant picture is mine. So you can see I'm on the other side of it, literally standing on the steps of this church. And this is inside the church. And there was renovations happening at that time. And so, first of all, that's really important if you're going to upset spirits, is they're tearing into the walls of this church, and they're doing some weird stuff. And this church is literally above this weird underground portion for the temple. See it here? This goes down to the temple. Nice black and white floor and everything. But anyways, nowadays I'd be more awake. Wasn't awake. And she acted really weird. And I just put these in here because you can see that I'm telling the truth. Like, we're all over Rome. And this is like the colonnade and stuff there. And she's acting like really fussy on this trip. And that's super not like her. Like, she's usually fun and outgoing, and she just wasn't. And, but she had all these issues going on too. And she was healing from things. So, you just kind of let things go as a parent. You don't really freak out or nothing. Then he takes us to this underground area that goes down to these tunnels, and above it is this restaurant, and this little old lady serves you dinner, and you don't get to pick what you get or anything. You just get what you get. And it was delicious, by the way. And he seemed really nice. She seemed really nice. Everything seemed fine. This is us with like literal pictures on the tour with this gladiator guide. And so we stay like a week. I just put these in here kind of for fun because, as we're talking. But she seems strange. And when we came back, this would have been for her birthday, which is in March. It's right by the equinox. Her birthday is like really close to it. And then we came home and we went on a family trip. And this family trip was in California. So we get there. And when I say we were off grid, I mean, we are really off grid. And I get this Airbnb, and it is like all ran on solar power. It's out in the middle of the woods, but it's in the redwood forest. And we all go. This was like shortly after. It was like really like in June. It was right after her birthday. We got back from Rome. We went on this trip. And the guy was really strange that I rented it from. And he had an owl for his profile picture. We're out in the middle of the woods, and my kids are all staying. We're all going as a family to this one, whereas the other one we didn't. This is a really good picture of it. And in the middle of the night, something was trying to get in this house. And I did not know what it was, but it slammed where the top level is so loud, it woke everyone up. And I was like, what the heck? Not my husband. It didn't wake him up. But the kids, me, we're all screaming. We think it's a bear. Like, we're freaking out. And my husband's like, you got to chill out because like, see, this is the door. So the second level is clear up it's far up there. And they're in this loft area that's like clear up this way. And that's where it hit. And I was like, no, there's definitely something there's the loft trying to get in this house. And I wake him up. I make him come out. I make him look all around with me. And there's like nothing. We didn't go outside because we were like, if it's a bear, we don't want to die today. So we come back and like, we're just chilling. And it was a full moon. I didn't know this. This is from a picture from one of my actual pictures. It was a full moon when we were there, which was weird. So she is acting way bad on this trip. And when that thing hit the door, she sits straight up in bed. And my little kids are there with her and they're 9 and 8. And she sits up still asleep and goes, Minerva, no. And then lays back down. She's not even awake.
What?
This is real. Well, you have to remember, I'm not awake, right? Like I have no idea. I have no idea about that temple we visited. I have no idea about any of this stuff yet. I just know we went to Rome. That's all. And I'm like, the kids keep saying it over and over and over again because they think it's hysterical. They think it's so funny. They don't know what it means, but they kept saying the whole trip, Minerva, no. And they're like making fun of her hardcore because they're little. They're 9 and, like 9 to 8, 9 and 10 right in there. And she was so bad on this trip that I literally told her, like, if you need to fly home, because she was a flight attendant, you can go do that. Like, I will take you to the nearest airport because you're on one and I'm not about it right now. So my stepson is like going through we call it his Jesus phase. He went through a serious Jesus phase, which is good. But like he went to the extreme and he was like, almost like Jewish Christian. He got like real crazy. He was like growing out his hair. He was like doing all this crazy stuff, like only reading the Bible, wouldn't watch TV, only eating certain things. Like he was getting real wild up. And so I kept having to like travel down to the nearest city to get like other supplies than stuff I brought because he wasn't going to eat that and all this stuff. So she was super agitated with him. And usually they get along good because he's like 19 at this point or 18. He's older. And they are the closest ones in age other than her sister who couldn't come. Well, her sister, at the same time this is happening with the kids and her sitting up and saying, Minerva, no, she is in sleep paralysis at my home in Utah. And she calls me as soon as we get service. I get this message from her that is just flipping out. Like same time, it has the timestamp. I remember we're out in the middle of like, no, there's no service out there. There's nothing out there. And I run into town to get the stuff for him to eat. And this message comes through and she's like, mom, mom, mom. Like she's like crying. She's hysterical. She's like my really sensitive kid. She feels things and sees things sometimes. And I just feel things. I've never been one to see anything since I was little. Because one time it happened, it scared me. That was the end of it. And so I'm like, wow, that was really weird. And then she continues to act this way the whole time. Well, all this time goes by. We come home from our vacation. I don't think anything of this. Remember, I'm completely normal, like Normieville. Well, my daughter estranges from us in 2020 over this guy. And she cuts us all off, says we're bad people, we're narcissists. She doesn't love us anymore. Like, I'm done with you people kind of thing. And then my daughter comes home one day, my second daughter, the sensitive one. She says, Mom, did you see? Oh, you got to beep that name out. Did you see her tattoo? And I said, no, I'm blocked on everything. Why? So this is her tattoo. This is Medusa. Wow. These are cherubim all around it. This is what she posted about it. Some people ask why I didn't add color or a flower or something pretty. Well, the meaning behind my tattoo isn't pretty. Medusa, just like myself and many other women, were raped. Medusa was cursed. This is how I felt after being raped, ugly and low in life. I wanted to represent how I felt in the middle of the curse. Beautiful but full with snakes, and yet I also wanted a sense of strength with her. Following my Medusa, there is a guardian angel I'm assuming this is her husband, because without my angel, I would not be here today. I remembering wanting to be gone from the curse, but an angel kept me here. This tattoo means so much to me. I'm so blessed to be here today, to be alive and to be a survivor. And so I didn't know anything about the church. I didn't know anything about anything until one day my husband came home shortly after she got this tattoo. And I'll stop sharing. We can just chat now. And he says, Heidi, did you see the check-in pop up on Facebook? And I said, no. What do you mean? What check? What are you talking about? He says, the check-in, it popped up today on Facebook. And I said, no, I don't know. I don't know what you mean. And he's like, well, you've got to look at this. So he shows me, and it's that church that I showed you of Minerva, the Soper de Minerva. And if anybody knows the story about Medusa and Minerva, supposedly Medusa was in the church praying for Minerva. She had idolized her, like she was worshiping her there. And she was like one of her maidens. And then her dude comes in and sees her and gets all crazy and has to have her right then and rapes her on the floor of that temple. Well, that's where we were in Rome. We went down to that lower level where that was, these ruins. But I didn't know any of this. And at this point, I'm more awake. This is in 2020 when he shows me the check-in and I start researching. So I found out, this church, all this weird stuff, even the guide, even the gladiator dude that was on there, all this stuff. And then on top of it, I start researching about California, because that's where we went right after, where she said, Minerva, no. And that's the state seal of that freaking state. Everything about California is also linked to Minerva. And she's literally calling out like, no, in the middle of the night. And so I have to tell you, like, my daughter is not the same person she was. She will say that to you. She will tell you that herself. She has said that to my mom. I don't speak to her anymore because she doesn't allow it. But I'm like the one person that I was the closest to her. So I think when these things sometimes come in, you're the one that is going to be, I'm not saying she's fully like engulfed in this. I'm just saying things attach to us sometimes, and she had been opened up for this with this trauma. And then on top of it, some other stuff that had been going on in her life. And so then her Prince Charming comes right up to her in the middle of a crowded airport. And then she never talks to any of us again. And she's this new person. And she'll tell anyone, like she tells my mom, she tells everybody, like, you wouldn't know me anymore. She came here, she emptied out her storage unit, and she was like prom queen and all these things. She threw everything away. All of her keepsakes that she'd kept for all this time. She threw them all away and just walked away from her life. Walked away from all of us. And even when my other daughter, who is pretty sensitive, tries to talk to her and different things, she just, nope. It's like, how's the sky? How's your day? How's the class? Like, it's like the weather, and like, you can't bring up anything with meaning at all. She cut off not only me, but she didn't see anybody from this side of the family for 4 years. 4 years. And then she finally came just barely and saw, and they have free flight benefits. She's married to a pilot. So money's not the issue. She lives far away, but money and travel is not the problem. They go all over the place. But I truly believe in that moment, she must have had a choice to make whenever all of that went down. And she definitely made her choice. Do I know that she's okay today? I know she's been rebaptized out of the Mormon church into a Baptist church that I think it's Baptist that he goes to. I don't know 100%, but I think her heart's probably a lot better than it was. But it worries me, like all these coincidences, all this connection, all of this stuff, and then how she changed, not only like on a mental level, but like in general, everything about her is completely different. It's really weird. And so when she got the tattoo, I freaked out. I was like, wow, this is nuts. Like that's a lot. Like she has a lot of tattoos. That part didn't freak me out, but like that she would actually get that. She knows nothing. She knows nothing.
I'm going to jump in here because that tattoo thing is like, it's from what I understand about that kind of stuff, people will become possessed, so to speak. They'll have an entity attachment. And depending on the type of entity, it will force them subconsciously to desire a tattoo so that it seals their spirit into the vessel. Because remember, back in those days, like if you read the old Catholic, like all the stuff that demonology is founded on, they will tell you about seals, and tattoos can be used as seals to either summon or either conjure or keep an entity trapped. So I could see how this Minerva Spirit, as we're calling it, would want to secure its place as,
and it's huge. It's like her whole, it's huge. And I'm like, this is wild to me. And especially now, knowing what I know, like about Mormonism and Solomonic magic and the seals, like you're talking about, like 100% Mormons use these. Like 100% Mormons use this, right? Like they use seals all the time in the whole foundation of the church. So she already was raised up. She was my most indoctrinated child because she was the oldest, right? The others, like as I got out, it's a different level. But these oldest ones, it's a different thing. And when I saw that, I felt the same like you. I felt like this is a mark on her. This is like a mark on her, and it scares me because everything has changed so much. And when you read about people that are affected, now I'm not saying she's not her anymore, but we know that people get affected by things. We know that channeling happens. We know that things can be accepted, especially if you accept it, especially where she says an angel helped her. I'm like, okay, was that her husband or was that a literal angel? And we all know what is the devil described as sometimes, right? Like a cherubim, like he was a cherub, right? There's it too. Either he was a cherubim or a seraphim. That's what people say. And I know we don't 100% know the answer, but like, just knowing that and hearing that when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh. And her husband I often wonder, he comes from a huge banking family back east and he wouldn't get married. Yeah. I was getting into things like when I seen him the second time, which would have been like after that trip, like, it was Halloween. It was on Halloween. And I would have been telling him things that I'm learning at this point. Cause I'm like getting in it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like not about Medusa or none of that yet, but I'm just like learning about Freemasonry, right? I'm learning about little things. So I'm like, he told me I'm never getting married anywhere, but in my church, in my hometown ever. She has to come here. That's really unusual for a bride. Because usually the bride's family is where the wedding is, like that's the tradition. Normally. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting married anywhere but in my church. And I was like, okay, but it's not like Catholic or anything. Like you're not, it's not because of he's a Catholic or something. And that's not why. He's not. But I found that so odd. I found it. He like systematically dismantled our whole family within 6 months. And that's that's weird on its own, let alone this Minerva stuff going on at the same exact time. It's like the same time. And then she had a roommate that was super into, not black magic. What is it called? She was Creole, voodoo, that kind of weird stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. They were doing love spells for her before she met this guy, right before. And she told me about it. And I was like, no, I was like, no, you can't do that. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? You want trouble.
Right.
That's bad. Like, what are you doing? And she was having like really bad cold spirit attacks, like in her room, like feeling cold and like weird stuff and nowhere else in the house. And I was like, you better be praying. Like, I remember telling her, you better be praying. Like, you better pray. And she was like, oh, this. And then so when the husband comes in, the roommate is gone. Just disappears out of her life. You tell me that's not an assignment. She unfriends all of us on Facebook. She unfriends everybody, the whole entire family. She unfriends the girl, like my daughter, who she was best friends with for 3 years. They lived together and was supposed to be like her maid of honor and everything. Poof, she's just gone into the night. Bye. Like, that's weird. You know, I thought it was weird. I don't know, but it's a scary, scary situation, I think. No.
Yeah, that's pretty strange. I mean, using voodoo to summon a lover, that stuff always backfires.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's not a good idea. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. And like I said, like, yeah, she got what she wanted. Like, what she always wanted was to be a mom, which she is, to not worry about money, which she doesn't, and kind of to be taken care of, you know, and she has, and she wanted a farm. She wanted a farmette, and she has one. And it's like everything she ever said, like minus a cow. I know she wants a cow. I don't think she has that, but minus that, everything else on her list is checked. But what did she have to give up? Every single one of us.
Everything else.
Yeah. And when I'm telling you, like, that was her brother and her brother and her. Remember, he was like 9. He's a kid. He's like 8. And they were tight. Like, she helped me raise him because when he was little, I had cancer. And so they were close, like so close, like her real child. And poof, just gone. Because he told her off one day. He was only like maybe 9 when he told her off. He said, why are you treating our mom like this? What are you, crazy? Like, that's our mom. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I don't care. Like, cause she was kind of going off on me. And he's like, I don't care if mom did something bad when you were younger or whatever. He's like, which, I mean, I was gone a lot and that makes me feel bad. But like, I had a nanny. I mean, I tried to do the best things I could for them, but yeah, I was gone a lot. I was the dad. I was the dad and the mom. There was no dad. You know, he took off. So, I mean, do I have regret? Absolutely. But like, I can't think of anything so horrific, right? Like, you rack your brain forever. For like a year and a half, I just racked my brain on what I could do, what I could change, what could happen on my end that I could fix this. Because like, you think you got to fix it, you know? But sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's not your deal. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. Like, I did everything I could. Like, I'll go to therapy with you. I'll get racked over the coals. Like, I'll say sorry to everybody. Like, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. Cause I missed her so bad, you know?
Right.
And nothing. Mm-mm. Nope. So this gets one more step weird. So one day, 2 days after she came home from the hospital from having a baby, she's had a baby now. Baby looks like me. And they always say, we don't know who the baby looks like. I'm like, okay. My mom tells them all the time, the baby looks like your mom. That's fine. Whatever. She looks an awful lot like me. The daughter does. But she comes home from the hospital and she calls my mom hysterical. And we were right in the middle of having a conversation and I wasn't like mad, but I just said, this needs to stop now. And I just hit the table like that. That was it. Like, that was as mad as I got. Like, we were just talking about it because we were sad about not seeing the baby and not being in the baby's life and stuff. We were just having our own talk. She wasn't on the phone yet. She calls my mom in the middle of this conversation, crying and screaming. Like, I knew that scream was serious. I knew something was wrong. And of course, she just had a baby and she had a C-section. I was scared something bad happened. You know, I didn't know. So my mom hands me the phone and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not supposed to talk to her. I'm trying to be respectful of her wishes. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm like, oh, so I say hello, you know, and she's like, lightning struck my house. And I'm like, what? Lightning struck my house. I'm like, when? Just now. Like, so in the time it took for her to call my mom, like literally that was why we were saying it needed to stop. Lightning struck her house, hit a gas line in her house and blew her wall out and started a fire. And he ran back in and put it out because he's also a volunteer firefighter. So he ran back in there, no equipment, nothing, put it out. Good for him. That's good. I'm glad everything was fine. Everybody was safe. But I found that really funny, like in an odd way, not funny, haha, that lightning struck their house right as we were saying that needed to stop. And this is when I'm more awake and more like in tune. I knew everything by then. And my mom was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I didn't wish nothing bad on nobody. I just said it needed to stop. Like, because my son was like, Mom. I'm like, no, I'm not in that business. I don't do wishing on bad people. No, that's not for me. But yeah, so lightning struck their house. It's pretty odd.
Yeah, that's pretty strange. I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as coincidence, really.
Right in the middle of us saying that. That was weird.
I mean, this is a really compelling story. I wonder if things can ever get better for her. Not necessarily between the two of you guys, but I wonder if things can ever get better for her. And if she really is just a goner at this point. Because, I know, like, even in my private conversations with Jerry Martinsky, I don't know if you know him, the way he talks about how there's this element of acceptance and there's like a relationship between the person and the possessor, the entity, and that until that relationship, that dependency goes away, it's kind of like it's never gonna resolve itself. I just wonder,
it, right? Like, yeah, they like own you or something, right? Like until you say stop it.
Yeah, but even then, they don't even really want to go. Like, they'll do anything to keep you stuck in that same pattern. And I guess that saying "first it giveth" is
right.
Very, very interesting, because you never know when things could just all of a sudden fall apart completely and be completely devastating for her. Like, that lightning strike is a good example of that.
Right. Like, maybe she was thinking about like connecting, because I did send baby stuff and I sent a letter, but he's like the grand interceptor. Like, he like takes all the things. Like, I wrote a big letter and told him how much I loved him and everything. And like, even him, I was like, look, like, whatever it is, but like, I just want to fix it. You know, like, I'm not mad. Just come home, like, not come home, like live here, like come back to our lives. But I also feel like we're the only things that would know if she was different, all of us. Because we would know. We know her. We know her, like real know her. We know her heart. You know, we know who she is. And my daughter and my son and everybody that saw her, first of all, it was on a time frame. She was here for like 3 days. And he only let him have 2 hours out to lunch with my mom. It was like in a restaurant, public place, timed. You can take pictures, say hi, blah, blah, blah. That was it. And like, it was very timed. And my son, I was like, how was it? You know, are you happy to see her? Are you happy? You know? And he's like, because we had a decision to make in that moment. You know, we have 2 minors. My husband was like, nope, screw her and the horse she rode in on. We're not sending our kids. And I'm like, okay, no, like, we're not. I'm like, we got to pray about this, you know, like, this is a big deal. What if they don't get to see her again for a long time? What if, you know, they get to meet the baby, all this stuff. So I'm like, I felt different about it because he's just still really mad about the fact because he's like, I never did anything. I don't understand. He got hurt, him too, everybody. And I said, I don't feel like that because I don't feel like it's you. Like I did feel like it was at first, like we did something right. We can fix it. It's us. But then at some point you have to say, this is them. This is their choice for whatever reason. Even if it is, maybe she just does hate me. Like, okay, fine. But this is still a weird story, right? Like at the end of the day, like you want them to be happy and you want them to be well adjusted. So the best thing I knew I could do for my kids, the little ones, is let them see their sister. Like that's a weird, don't do that. You know, you can't like say no. So I let him go. And I was like, you don't seem too happy. Like, are you not that happy? And he's like, it was okay. I'm like, why? He's like, it was really regimented. It was like, you know, and he's like, it just felt weird. And I was like, well, that's sad. And my little one said she didn't know if she wanted to go again if they came back. And she's only 10. And she's like, Mom, I don't know. It's not the same. And you're not there. And it's sad. She's like, it's just so sad knowing that you're like right down the street and you don't get to see her. And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I just played it off. I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I want you to have fun, you know? And she's like, no, but you're our mom. You know, you should be with her. Like you're her mom. Like even at 10 years old, she's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. But I think she made a Faustian bargain. I really do. It feels so strange, you know? I hate to say that because she's my kid, but I have to tell you, like her name, she was the only one when I got married in the temple and you kneel over an altar and you look into these weird mirrors. She was in me. I was like 8.5, almost 9 months pregnant. I was far. Like she was due soon, like maybe 3 weeks. So she was there. She was within me when I'm like having this done. And actually that's where I got her name is at that time. And I always wonder, man, I'm like, what did I do? You know, like, and I know, like, I mean, I spend a lot of time trying to break things off. Even now, it's a forever process. I think once you make oaths, which is why I'm here telling my story, don't make oaths. God says it for a reason. It's a really good idea to listen. Don't make oaths because you don't know. You don't know what you're doing all the time. They told me that was about going to heaven. It's not. It's Solomonic magic.
Yeah.
Not.
Exactly. These vows and stuff, they really exist. They really take a toll on you. They really bind you to certain circumstances and situations forever if you don't know how to break it. I mean, I read, I shouldn't say I just read it. I studied a book called The Grand Keys of Solomon. And I don't know if anybody else has read this, but it's 3 parts. It's a tome. It's a lot to go through. And I just didn't like how I felt while I was studying it, but I was trying to get familiar with the information because I felt like it was relevant to the path that I'm on. And it's a lot of dark stuff. Like there's really people out there that, you know, and I want to preface this. There's people that are going to listen to this and they don't agree with Christianity. They don't agree with the New Age. They don't agree with even the concept that Satan exists or Lucifer exists. Like there's going to be people that are just green that are going to hear this and they're going to have all kinds of ideas, and that's fine. But the reality is that there are people out there that believe that these things work, and whether it's real or not, it is their belief alone that appears to make these things work and make these entities manifest. And it's a serious thing. It's nothing to be played with.
I want to show you this since you mentioned the Keys of Solomon. This has nothing to do with my with Mormon, with Minerva, but it has to do with Mormons. I want to show you what I found this week. Maybe this was why I was supposed to see it now.
Right. I'll just continue talking while you look for it.
Yeah.
You're this kind of manipulation of energy and stuff like that. It is some of the darkest stuff. And even when I was reading it, it's like things would happen around me that weren't good, that I just like, I wasn't living in this house. I was living overseas in a house in Pennsylvania, and like the cat died and all kinds of weird stuff, like under weird circumstances and stuff. While I was reading this, I was like, I really wonder if something didn't reach in and just like clock this cat. Like,
oh my gosh!
Like the cat looked like it had been, the cat looked like it had been bludgeoned to death, basically.
Oh my
and it was an inside cat. Yeah, so it's like, what could have attacked this cat? You know,
right, and, inside the house.
Yeah, all kinds of weird stuff went on. I'll just leave that example there, but this stuff isn't anything to be played with. And when you're looking at like when you get really curious and really honest, because that's the key component here, and just read. Stop looking for this stuff on the internet, because the internet is not going to give you all the right information all the time. You have to read books, and usually you have to read a lot of them to find the parallels and where things line up and lead you in the right direction. But you know, the Rothschild family is a real thing, you know, and they control a lot of these religions and stuff. Go back to them, and they're linked with Freemasonry and stuff like that. And now there's this weird thing on the internet where there's like sympathy for Freemasonry, and it's like, no, just the people that you feel sympathetic towards, they don't know what's going on, because they're not of that kind of spirit that they're gonna get told to go up to this level or that level or whatever. But there's other things going on. I describe it as being like a hallway with many doors, and whichever room your personality and your level of morality suits, they'll call you into that door, and then there'll be hundreds of thousands of other people that don't know, because they're not suitable for that. So there's darkness afoot. There's evil, seriously, in this world. And there's a lot of stuff like this that you're saying that it's common. People have no idea how common this stuff is. This is a real thing that you're going through.
Yeah.
But you're going to show me something.
Can you see this? It's pulled up on the screen.
I think I need to exit, and I have to add you to add that screen back. Yep, I'm going to add it. There you go.
Okay. So here is the parchment that the founder of the Mormon Church had on him at his death. You'll recognize it because you've studied what I've studied. And this talisman is also what he wore it was always on his body. This is a copy of that talisman up close, and the back of it's different, but that's the third seal of Jupiter, or third pentacle of Jupiter. And then also this is what is on that parchment right there. And this is commanding spirits. And I just barely learned about this. And these are the spirits that are on that parchment as well. And he was directly working with Raphael. And if you notice, when it was on that parchment, it's not in a circle, so it's not bound. That means he's working directly with it, with those entities. And this is the founder of that church. When I went to read the seals of Solomon, the greater and lesser keys, I found them, and look who uploaded them. The Greater Key of Solomon, digitized by Brigham Young University, BYU.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mormon College. And I was like, what in the heck? And this is their new seal for their priesthood. Yeah. And they call it the seal. They literally call it the seal of Melchizedek. And again, it's not in a circle.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting with the Solomonic aspect of things. Like, that's wild to me, you know? So anyway, I thought you might find that interesting, because I just barely learned about it, because I was studying this.
Yeah.
That's Solomonic. I just thought it was Masonic. I didn't know, like, all that. But you know that's the kind of stuff you're taking oaths for in the temple, like that.
Yeah,
right
precisely. Precisely. Another dangerous thing is the way that people reference King Solomon as a hero because maybe the Bible told them that or whatever. But Solomon isn't who they say he is. There's all this information as well. Even when you read the Keys of Solomon, there actually is no proof that Solomon is a real human being either. It's more like they refer to him as though he's a deity itself, like maybe a demigod or some kind of thing like that.
Well, he had to be something to control them all. Like he controlled them all. Like, and I know they talk about the ring, and people are going to hear this. And that new show came out, the Lord of the Rings show. I haven't watched it yet, but I've already got messages from a bunch of people like, "Do you see this stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't have to watch it to know what that's going to be like." Talking about cutting hands and dripping blood. Yeah, I'm like, that's okay.
You already know me. So I'm not going to be watching any of that stuff. I just don't care.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, yeah, you can describe it to me. I'll tell you what it is. But I'm
these people are so ridiculous, Heidi. They're so ridiculous. They actually think they can consciously watch this stuff just because they know a little bit of something and it's not going to affect them. You idiots. Y'all are freaking stupid. I'm just going to say it. Like, whatever goes into your subconscious mind acts on you against your will. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
When they told me just one scene, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. That sounds terrifying. Like, what? He's cutting his hand open, bleeding on stuff in a circle? Sounds familiar. No, thank you. I was like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of the number one themes. That's one of the number one themes that's recurring in a lot of television, even non-Hollywood produced films. It's just the same thing, same repetitive stuff over and over. Conjuring of demons.
And rings too. And rings. Always one ring to rule them all, right? Like, you know.
Yeah, well, let me tell you a quick story that's relevant to the ring thing. When I was about 18 years old, I used to hang out with a guy, and fuck him. I'm not even gonna like bleep this out. His name was Ryan, and we all knew him. His nickname was Satan, and he had a ring that he wore, and if he took his ring off, he would lose his mind. And the inside of the ring had an inscription, and I really believe that he had demons and stuff in it, because when he would take this ring off before he wanted to do anything bad, and he used to do a lot of bad stuff, like criminal stuff. And we actually didn't even realize that was what he was doing until it was too late. We found out that he was doing it, but he would just lie and manipulate people and have like sex orgies and stuff like that. And you know, we just thought he was a normal guy. We just thought he was a little wacky or whatever. And he was into like, we thought he was just weird because he was into like heavy metal music and stuff. He'd be wearing like a Disturbed t-shirt with anybody that's into Disturbed music, you know, they had one album called Believe, but it's a combination of all of the symbols like Star of David and all that stuff all made into one symbol. And it's also not inside of a circle either. So it's like, you know, people don't understand exactly how deep in the shit we are when it comes to this demonic influence, these entities just running loose looking for people to jump on. And he was full of it. I just recently reconnected with someone who was the little sister of this Ryan guy's girlfriend, and I remember his girlfriend used to lose it. She would lose her freaking mind too. And she was into witchcraft of the dark kind. And she would have like seizures and all kinds of crazy stuff. I remember having to go over there once or twice to help the little sister, just like take her away from the house because some crazy stuff was going on. Yeah. This story with your daughter reminds me of my sister. My mother told me a story when I was really young. I guess back then it was just a story for me. But she told me that my sister never acted right after like the age of 7, because she came home one evening and found her in the living room pretending to play school. And she had these rulers and she was like pretend beating the crap out of all the students in the classroom, the so-called classroom. And my mother asked her why she did it. And she said, Pernicia made me do it. And my mother was like, who the hell is Pernicia? And Pernicia was her imaginary friend. And back then they lived in a house that was, it was in like 1980. And they lived in a house that was, my mother would swear that this house was haunted, because one night she got up to go for a glass of water and something pushed her really hard right into a glass table. This was right around the time that my sister was talking to imaginary friends and stuff like that. But they eventually left the house and came to this house that, well, not this house, but house next door. My family has 2 houses. One next to, both are side by side, I should say. And then they eventually moved into this house, and that's where they lived. But when they left that house, Pernicia went away. All the imaginary friend talk went away, and all the spooky stuff stopped happening.
Oh, that's good.
Right? So that tells you a lot. But my mother swears that there's a demonic influence that took over my sister that changed her forever, because my sisters gave us trouble for like 20 something years until she finally moved away, got away from us. Actually, we asked her to get away from us. she didn't move by choice. We were like, you've just got to go.
Enough of that. Yeah, that's enough trouble from you.
She would just do really evil things. She was always drawn to really evil things. The kind of movies that she liked to watch were always the really evil things. And she seemed to get joy out of the suffering of other people. I remember there was a movie, I can't remember if it's a Johnny Depp movie or what it is, The Ninth Gate or something like that. And I remember she really loved that movie when it came out. She loved like the cover art and everything. She was like, oh, this looks so good. And I was like, okay, something's wrong with you. But anything that had like the devil's title, like anything referencing the devil or demons or anything like that, she was all over it all the time, and it was really, really strange. She's a homewrecker. That's what she is. She's a demon for sure.
That's scary.
Even like I remember noticing it when I was like 13, 14 years old. She always had a particular smell, like sulfur, on her body all the time. She always smells really bad, like egg, rotten egg.
Oh no!
Yeah,
rotten eggs.
Yeah,
it's definitely not good. Oh my gosh! Yeah, I just think I can see it. You know, people play with things they shouldn't, and sometimes even like okay, Joseph Smith. I showed you what he had on him. But what did he say visited him, right? Like an angel. He didn't say a demon, but like they fake it. They fake it. And if you know the true story, Joseph Smith couldn't have seen an angel because the guy was supposedly a real person once. That's not an angel. That's necromancy. You're talking to a dead guy. Like that's not an angel. That's different, you know?
Yeah. When you do your research, you actually find information that suggests that Joseph Smith was talking to demons. Like, didn't he go to graveyards or something like that? I think he did.
He was a treasure digger, supposedly. But and there was, a lot of creepy stuff happening around him that people don't talk about. Like his brother mysteriously died of constipation and had an overdose of medication from it. And he was the oldest son. So that right there was weird. Then Joseph has a baby right after he supposedly talks to this angel and gets all these plates that he's, doing. His baby is born and has horrific birth defects, and they name it the dead brother's name, and it dies within minutes. And it's like all birth defect, like problems and stuff. And like, so 2 of the firstborn sons dead. And then what happens? He gets everything he's wanted. Like, I mean, he becomes, he ends up running for president of the United States. Yeah, he gets martyred later. Makes you wonder, like, why? I did get martyred later. Yeah, he's talking what he was told.
Yeah, when you check it, Charles T. Russell was kind of like on the same vein. He had similar things that happened, like talking to entities and stuff like that. And there we have it, Jehovah's Witnesses. And people actually think it's something good, but it's just another cult.
Muhammad. I always say, listen, Muhammad was speaking to spirits, Gabriel, supposedly, right? And then we've got Crowley speaking to aliens. He's got Thelema. We got John Dee speaking to everybody. He was speaking to all the dead people. He's up here. And a lot of things came from him. I mean, tons of things came from him, including the Enochian alphabet. So, he lays this stuff out, but it's, Crowley's not special. He's not special. Parsons out in the desert, they all paid a price too. It was always sexual in nature. It either starts up with polygamy or they swap wives or they're doing some weird stuff like every single time. God doesn't require that. Do you think God would come down and be like, yeah, swap wives? No, that's weird. No, he's not going to require a sexual sin to make it happen. Like, that's weird. So every one of them.
Yeah.
I don't know about the Jehovah's Witnesses if they have a sin associated with theirs, but
I can't remember a lot of this stuff. There's just so much stuff to memorize that it's like, I don't know how I'm going to remember all this stuff. By the time I'm dead, I won't remember any of this. But I just read it anyway, I just read it because I'm fascinated.
Maybe we'll be extra good by then. But like, it's weird that they all have almost the same story. I mean,
yeah, it's all coming from the Rothschild infiltrated Satanism thing, like the Lucifer worship and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. So, and it goes far back into the Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism and all kinds of stuff. Like, I talked to a guy about that.
It's all the same people.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's so crazy. I'm like, what? But
it's all the same people.
He didn't want to talk to me about Mormons. I'll tell you that right now. He didn't want to talk about that. We talked about like things around it, but he didn't want to talk about that. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, one of my very best friends was raised in the Mormon religion and stuff. And her mother kind of woke up and tried to get him out of it. Not without her getting raped as a little girl, but
man,
it seems to be a common thing that happens in the Mormon cult, and people just don't talk about it.
Yeah, they're starting to come out and talk about it. And that's where it makes you wonder, like, the brother died of constipation. Like, oh, what'd they do to him?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying they did, but
that dying of constipation story is a common thread too, though, because you'll see there's a lot of celebrities that die of constipation as well too, and they were really successful. Then one day, they just can't shit anymore, and that's suspicious.
Suspicious. That means something happened, probably. Yeah.
It sounds almost like there's some kind of a ritual that occurs there, and that's just the cover story for it.
Makes you wonder.
Like how they killed Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington and stuff like that with the blood eagle sacrifice.
Yep.
All that kinds of stuff.
Kate Spade too, and that chef guy, whatever his name, Chef Anthony Bourdain. They all died the same way.
Yeah, Anthony Bourdain. Yeah. Yeah.
Kate Spade, the purse maker, and she did the same way, like all around the same time. But yet they had broken bones. I mean, you're gonna beat the shit out of yourself before you off yourself? Like, really? That sounds like a great idea. Broken ribs, everything. Chris Cornell's was really suspect. He had a lot of broken ribs. So
yeah, David Bowie was really suspicious too. And then after he dies, what album gets released? Black Star, and right on there is just so much symbolism and stuff like that. And Prince died and all that stuff too.
Oh, Prince singing about dying in an elevator, and he dies in an elevator.
Yeah,
that was weird.
Broke his hip before it happened. Really?
Yeah,
Like he just broke his hip that week, they say, and he went to the hospital for medication. No, I don't think so. Y'all beat that man. Y'all beat that tiny little man. For no reason.
All of them. Makes you really step back and go, whoa, what's happening here? It all goes back to NWO type stuff, like every single bit of it. And all the religions do too, by the way. Like they're all a big part of it. Not that God's part of it. I'm just saying at some point, God gets corrupted in those hearts of those men. Anytime you put your faith in men, I promise you'll be disappointed. Like you have to put your faith somewhere else, because I don't do that anymore. It's not for me. You know. Yeah. Fool me once. Come on now. I'm okay over here. Like, nah. I don't trust any of them anymore, especially after learning some things this week. And I'm like, where are your shareholdings, Mormon Church? Top 10, Tesla, Apple. All of them are like completely, they're just all in together. Elon Musk's top dude is Jared Birchall, who is Mormon. And then one of the top 10 holdings of the Mormon Church is Tesla. I think they're number 10. Apple's like number 1. And by the way, United Healthcare Systems, UHS, which I'm just like, oh, no wonder they pushed that one thing in 2020. Got it. Gotcha. Yeah, now we know why. Right? Like,
pointy thing.
Look what they had to get.
But I think where you're going down that line too, I think H.G. Wells actually talks about religion and the technocracy in one of his books a while ago. He like ties it all together too. I can't remember. Like I told you, I read so much stuff. It's like I can't even remember all of it.
I'll put it in and try to find that one. You know me, I like to read because it's really not online, and they'll change it if they want to. They'll change it. That they can go in. That's why they want everything digitized, so they can just delete. You know, and it even books are affected by like the what do you call it when things are weird? What is that?
Oh, the Mandela effect.
Yes, I totally think that's a thing because I've seen some verses in the Bible. Well, I know some verses that have been affected because I've talked to John Kerwin, and he talks about the lion and the lamb, and I remember that. I'm old enough that I know it was the lion and the lamb, but it isn't anymore. It's the wolf and the lamb. No, it wasn't. The lion has always been representative of Christ, always. And now you got a wolf there, and I'm going, wait a minute, what?
It was definitely the lion, though. I remember that too.
It was the lion. It's representative. Like he's the king, right? Like this is what we've always. And then I'm like, a wolf? What? And then, but other people remember it differently, and they Mandela the shit out of me on that one. I'm like, okay, I don't know, I guess, but I think it was the lion, but it's not. I found even my oldest Bible says the wolf. And I'm like, that's a really old Bible. I'm like, okay, that's weird. That's why we're supposed to memorize these things. Even if you can't remember what book it's from or whatever, you have the knowledge. That's why we're supposed to have knowledge. That's why we're supposed to do that. Because they can do what they want. Money magic, all kinds of magic. People don't believe in magic. I do.
It's everywhere. There's magic in everything. You just kind of have to look for the light side of things. Like this whole world that we live in is basically magical.
But a lot of people don't believe in that. A lot of people say it's no such thing. And I'm like, okay. Maybe not at your house.
Sometimes if that's just... Yeah, I just wonder if that people are just freaking dumb, because that's where I'm at with it now. I think that most people are just really dumb, and they actually do not care as long as they get to go home and watch their TV and drink their coffee and drink their alcohol and sit around and be lazy. You know, I just work too hard. I don't want to have to think about how I'm being mind controlled after working for 9, 10, 11 hours a day, you know?
It's true. They don't want to. I get it. I try to tell people something sometimes and they're like, why does it matter? Like I try to tell my stepdad about the Mandela and I said, how does the end of We Are the Champions end? And I told him the song. And then he's like, he said the right verse, and then he's like, yeah, it ends like this. And I'm like, no, it doesn't anymore. And he's like, yes, it does. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And so I was trying to explain it to him and he goes, who cares? I scared him because he knows music. Yeah, he knows music. He didn't want to hear it.
Exactly. That's how people act.
Yeah. I was like,
that's the biggest problem on the planet. That is the biggest problem on the planet. It's not that anything is being done to us. It's that the majority of us are too stupid to allow any kind of freedom in their lives. Like the word freedom just kind of implies freedom all the way. Like empowerment only comes through taking responsibility for yourself, but it's just too hard. It's too hard for the average person.
Well, and I think, like you said, they're just happy. Like he was busy, he was mowing his lawn or something, and he was like, I don't have time for your nonsense, right? And I'm like, well, what if it's not nonsense? What if this is important? Like, what if it changed your Bible that you care about? And he's like, it did not. I'm like, well, I guess I better not tell him.
Yeah.
I was like,
unfortunately for him, you can mow your lawn and self-reflect too, but they don't want to hear that either.
He didn't want to hear that. He definitely was like weirded out. He knows because he's like, so one day there's this and one day there's that. Oh, well. And like, I was like, yeah, but you recognize it. You saw it. I'm telling the truth. And he's like, no, he doesn't want to. It scares him. I honestly think for him, it scares him. He doesn't want to deal with that process. Like that could be possible that they could mess with lyrics, or that could be possible that they could mess with whatever,
Right.
And I'm like, you can go back. Like even in live shows, it'll change everywhere. Like on the Mandela, John has gone back and showed things where it was like a live concert and this happened and it didn't happen now. And now it's like gone, like that word or that phrase or whatever. And I'm like, what? Blew my mind. I didn't even know that could happen. Like, I was like, okay, that's weird. Because at first I thought they could only fix like what's current. You know what I mean? Like currently. But no, they can fix other things. So they can go backwards.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
weird.
Oh, it just pisses me off, Heidi. I've never been the personality type to just sit there and take something just because. It just bothers me.
Same. Yeah. I always speak out, but then people think you're nuts. So I guess I'm a little nuts. I don't know, but I still keep talking. I'm like, that's what they get to know. And then it makes you, hopefully will drive enough people toward reading or studying things for themselves, and they can see what we see, maybe. Hopefully. That's what I hope.
Yeah. So just to get back on topic before we wrap this up. So what would you say to parents that find themselves in a similar situation where like something obviously happens with their child and they don't want to have a relationship with them anymore, but they know that they didn't do anything wrong? Like maybe it's a narcissist, which I think are demonic spirits.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It could be, it could be first. You really do have to examine yourself. I mean, I think anytime somebody abruptly ends a relationship, especially a kid or like vice versa, like with parents, whatever, because that's like your core people. If you're willing to cut, your arm off, basically, like that's like an arm of yourself, like there's got to be something that's very, very serious going on. And people always say, well, she probably was abusive. She probably was this. She probably was, if you're the mom, especially, you're going to get that. You're going to get like, oh, they deserve it then. She must be a bad mom. Da, da, da. And you know what? For a year, I played that game. In my mind. Like, maybe I am a narcissist. One time, this doctor at work, I was talking to this doctor and he goes, Heidi, I can tell you why you're not a narcissist. He started laughing. And I was like, don't laugh. It's serious. Like, what? And he's like, narcissists don't ask if they're a narcissist. He's like, if you're asking, then you're concerned about it, and they don't care. They will never ask themselves that question because they don't want to know that answer. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. So yes, true. I think, you got to look at yourself. You got to do some self-work for sure. But then if you've done everything within your power, right? You've done all the stuff, you've reached out, you've tried, you've exhausted every effort that you can think of, and it's still not getting anywhere, then we have to look at the story of the prodigal son. And I think that's in there for a reason, because, right, it teaches us to wait, which I hate, because I'm very much like, I'm just going to go there. I'm just going to go there. I'm going to drive there. I'm going to show up on her doorstep. I'm going to tell them. And then I'm like, and then I'm going to look crazy. And so I prayed about it. Every time I get a no, nope, you're not driving there. Nope, you're not going there. Nope, you're not going to do that. And I'm like, man, that sucks. Cause I'm very head on person. I want to attempt to fix it head on. But every time I got a no on that. So I'm like, pray, wait, think, and get curses off of your life. That's the main, try and get them off of your life, because you can't do anything about theirs. If it is an attachment, pray against it. But ultimately, like you said, right, at the end of the day, it has to be them that chooses. That cutoff has to come from somewhere better than me, because it's their choice, right? If you're letting something in your life, you can't get rid of that for them. That's why we have to teach our kids to stand on their own feet. But I do say, I always leave my door open. I will never shut my door. I will never shut my door and say, you can't come home, or you can't call me, or you can't see me. I'll never do to her what she's doing to me, because it's sick, and it's a sickness almost, because you don't get better that way. If you're angry at someone, you're going to be angry at them until you talk to them and resolve the problem. You don't resolve anything with silence. That just doesn't work. And so if you can communicate, try it. If you can do it with somebody impartial, probably better idea. Therapy, I go back and forth on. I think it's best to make sure the person is in your best interests, because a lot of times now paid therapists, a paid person in your life, somebody that has a gain to get, make sure they're doing it for the right reasons. Because just like doctors that keep people sick, sometimes that too, right? They want to be the person. If they step in and say, kick your mom out of your life forever, then now you're going to your therapist for everything. So I mean, it kind of is a moneymaker there. So be careful, right? Be careful of advice. But that goes on both sides of that story. But also you have to always protect yourself, because what if she does have that and she came back tomorrow? What if, my stench to her is bad because I'm trying to live this good path now. They say that believers will be hated the minute they come in a room. And sometimes I feel that, dude. Sometimes you can feel that on people. And so sometimes you can just only pray. But I journaled, I prayed, I went to the scriptures. I just try to do what I can do within my power and give the rest to God, because you cannot force it. If you try, you're going to look psychotic. So force is not of God anyways. Honestly, control isn't God's. God doesn't control like that. That's not a thing. That's why we have free choice. So I can only hope. I have hope, and I won't ever give that up. Yeah. And love. And I can love her from afar. And that's all I can do.
Yeah. And what I'll say to a lot of parents out there that might be listening is sometimes you do everything right. Sometimes you do everything the right way. You've made all the right choices as best as you could, and your kid still turns into a psychopath and doesn't like you. I've been through it. So
sometimes you can't control it.
Yeah, sometimes, and usually it's under the influence of someone else or something else. And there's nothing you can do about it, as hard as that might be to hear for a lot of people, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going through this or something similar. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yep. You just got to work on yourself. Work on yourself. Pray for everyone. And like for my granddaughter, I did start a journal for her just because I want her to know, like, I would never choose, like, someday that's going to be a question, right? Like, where were you? Like, what happened to you, dumb lady? Like, and I'm going to be like, no, I didn't want to do this. So here's this, because I want her to know that would never be my decision to stay away, because I just wouldn't do that. So at least I have that to give to her if she ever does seek me out, which most often happens. So
yeah,
can hope.
All right. Well, Heidi, I gotta get out of here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, of course. I understand.
Yeah, thanks for being on the Boundless Authenticity podcast. I hope you'll come back sometime soon.
Yes.
Tell everybody where they can find you.
I am at the Unfiltered Rise Podcast. I am everywhere podcasts are served. I do have a website now, unfilteredrisepodcast.com. And you can find me on all of those platforms. YouTube is only once a week, whereas Spotify, if you follow me there, it's twice a week, because YouTube is hard. YouTube is not like in my vibe. We'll put it that way. Also on IG.
All right, great. Well, that's a wrap. I'll talk to you soon.